fight fans, boxers, trainers from around the world. Welcome to another episode of the No Decision Podcast. It is Wes Ibarra. Alongside me is Joy Villapando. Joy, are you ready to make some rounds with me tonight?
I am extremely excited, Wes. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Round one, let's go, baby. The big news from Saturday night. Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith for the 168-pound titles. Fight took place last night at San Antonio, Texas, Alamo Dome over the zone. Big expectations. Both guys looked very good. They both made weight at 168 pounds. These was for Callum Smith's 168-pound titles. And Canelo put on a masterclass. He did not put his foot off the pedal. I tell you, I never seen a beating on a tall guy since Manny Pacquiao on Antonio Margarita. My God. Wow. And the final score after 12 rounds was 119, 109, and 117, 111, all in favor to the new 168-pound champion of the world, which is, I believe, Ring Magazine and IBF, um, Canelo Alvarez. And Callum Smith did not look good out there. I gave him 2 rounds, but for the most part, Callum Smith was very, very underwhelming. I was really disappointed. The announcers made a really good point about how when the UK fighters come across the pond, they don't seem to do well. And
Mm,
Canelo seemed to have a very good history with British fighters, Liam
right.
Smith included, which is Callum Smith's older brother, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So everything seemed to make sense for Canelo. Canelo looked really good. It seems like Eddie Hearn has not solved the Canelo puzzle yet, but at the same time, Canelo proved why he's number one pound for pound in most, if not all, pound for pound listings throughout the world. So, Joy, given what I just said about Canelo's masterclass performance, damn near shutout,
Mm.
what do you think is next for the pound for pound king?
Well, there's a couple of interesting choices that he could go, right? Obviously, he could fight more 168 pounders, Caleb Plant. He could also fight Billy Joe Saunders. And, interesting, maybe later on in the podcast, Triple G, right? There's always going to be this question lingering around Canelo and Triple G regarding a third fight, right, to end off the trilogy. And so yeah, there's a ton of options for Canelo, and being pound for pound king, I think he could choose the lot pretty much.
For sure, Joy. And I made a mistake. It was for the WBA
Mm,
belt, not the IBF belt. So my bad. But he also won a vacant belt in the 168 division, and that's the WBC. So he got the green strap.
right.
What a night for Canelo, man. And if you ask me, I think there are a lot of options for him too, as well. Yeah, you did mention Caleb Plant. There's Billy Joe Saunders. But how about Benavidez? How
Mm.
about how about Boo Boo Andre, Demetrius Andre? The guy wouldn't stop talking with Kate Abdo about how he wanted to go in there and whoop some ass, particularly Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders.
Right.
A lot of action, I tell you what. It was star studded. Everyone came out. Pro Canelo crowd, of course, because you're down in South Texas. But man, a lot of fireworks, not only in the ring but also outside of it as well. So Canelo has a big decision upcoming to make, and of course, Eddie Hearn and his stable at Matchroom has a lot of solutions to fill in that gap there for Canelo.
Mm.
So I'm excited to see what's next for the pound for pound king. I'm real excited about 2021, especially in the 160 and 168-pound division.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. And shouts to Canelo for, after a 13-month layoff, just whooping some ass to the
Abs-
point where his opponent has a left bicep injury.
yeah, that was pretty gruesome. I did see photos of that. Real quick, Wes. So just to clarify, this was the very last fight for Canelo in the zone, right?
That is correct. So, for everyone that has been living under a rock, Canelo broke off his deal with DAZN and Golden Boy Promotions.
Mm.
So he plans to go on the rest of his career, at least as of now, as a free agent, independent. DAZN was willing to pick up this fight, especially given that the opponent was a matchroom client in Callum Smith. But after that, it seems like Canelo will be running his own gig in
Mm.
terms of promoting, in terms of scheduling, whatever the case may be. Of course, Eddie Hearn might still be in it because a lot of the 160 and 168 pound contenders are
Or
under
matchroom.
his stable.
Right.
But for what it's worth, I think it's a good move for Canelo to do his own thing. He is the man in boxing right now.
Right.
And yeah, he's proven why he deserves nothing but the best in this sport. But speaking of future opponents, the next opponent that I would want to see for Canelo, oh, and before I get into that, I wish a very well recovery on Callum Smith. The guy took a
Absolutely.
really severe beating last night. You know, I got to give it to him for hanging in there, taking it to the distance, being a class act in defeat, and he'll come back stronger for sure. But again, next opponent for Canelo, I think is the guy that we're going to be going into round two. So quick round one. Round two, Triple G versus Camille Sarameda.
Mm.
Triple G was an overwhelming favorite, but then again, the knocks against him were that he was coming into the fight at 38 years old. He did struggle in his last fight against Derevyanchenko,
Mm.
and people were wondering, are we going to see the old Triple G or a very old Triple G, or the Triple G of old, or an old Triple G?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the other question was, are we going to get the big drama show? He said it's the big beautiful show. And I can tell you right now, Joy,
It was pretty beautiful.
the big beautiful show, very nice. He had the jab going, he had the power punches going, he was sizing up Sarameda as if it was target practice, and he knocked the guy down 4 times.
Right.
Resulted in a 7th round RSC. Referee stops the contest.
Mm.
So a TKO to Triple G's name. But he showed a lot of promise last night.
Absolutely.
And he's been out of the ring for a while. It was a little over a year, too, for Triple G. And, man, he still got it. I think he's probably one of the baddest, if not the baddest guy in the middleweight division.
Absolutely.
Especially at 160 pounds. 21 title defenses. That is a crazy reign, Joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on.
Yeah.
Even before the fight, I don't know if any of our audience has seen Triple G in the pre-fight weigh-in. But this is the best I've ever seen Triple G in shape, and that's because he hired a professional, pretty much trainer, to pretty much train him as you know, build his body, be a little bit more lean, be a little bit more sleek, and by the way, he hired a nutritionist, I think, but his trainer Jonathan Banks has also worked a little bit better with Triple G. I saw that in the fight when Triple G is a little bit more different now. He still has pretty good head movement. I think it's a little bit better than what him and Abel Sanchez pretty much cooked up. But I think he has a little bit better footwork as well. He was able to cover grounds and distances, and you know, pretty much the space between Sarameda pretty well. There was a point in the fight where Sarameda just he was throwing punches, but there was just nothing behind these punches. And so when Triple G sensed that, you know, that's when he pretty much went for the kill. Sarameda would throw like 3-4 combination punches, and then Triple G was just perfectly timing them right. he would just throw one or two combinations of power punches. It was incredible to watch. I'm excited. I hope Triple G uses this if in his future fights and bigger fights later on. But yeah, I am super excited. This is a new Triple G that I've seen. It's very subtle changes. But I think they make a huge difference. His head movement is a little bit more different. I think now he could actually see the punches coming, whereas before he sees the punches coming, but he'll just take it. And so yeah, I'm super excited.
Joy, that's some very, very good insight. You brought up some points that I did not bring up, so I appreciate you for that, man. And if I haven't already implied it, I want Triple G versus Canelo,
Canelo.
3. So, what are your thoughts on my wish list here? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think that this is the best move for either man, given that both men are at different points in their careers? Canelo is still in his prime, while Triple G is getting up there in age at age 38. What do you think? Do you think it happens? Do you think either guy, if you were in either one of those guys' heads or in their inner circle, would you think that they would want that fight?
I think there is a small possibility that it might happen for a third fight. It doesn't seem as though Canelo is looking for a third fight with Triple G. It seems as though he's very focused into conquering the 168 division. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think now Canelo has kind of turned his focus away from Triple G, and Triple G kind of has to kind of get his attention a little bit more now. Um, when back to the question that you asked, like I think Canelo doesn't really need Triple G. I think Triple G needs Canelo to kind of this is the guy that gave me my first loss. I need to beat him. I need to show to everyone that you know just because he beat me, I could beat him again, or I could beat him back. It'll be interesting, right? Like I said, this Triple G that I saw was very different. The subtle differences make him a lot better boxer. Um, and of course, the power is still there, but Canelo has also been a better boxer. And so pretty much, although I haven't seen the most recent fight with Smith, Canelo's head movement over the years has gotten a lot better. It's a lot harder to really hit Canelo, but I think Canelo, I think still would like to prove to everyone and to Triple G that he is the far superior boxer. So I think a third fight would make sense for Canelo if he wants to prove himself. I think he's in this mind space that he doesn't need to prove any more to Triple G or to his fans or to anyone out there. I think Canelo believes that he won the second fight pretty dominantly.
That being said, Joy, say it doesn't happen. Say Canelo wants to go on a tour of trying to beat Plant,
Hmm.
trying to beat Billy Joe Saunders, Andrade, anyone that's in his way at 168. If you're Triple G, say you stay at 160, and you got those two other titles, and Canelo doesn't want to fight you for whatever reason, who do you want in front of you next time?
Ooh, that is tough. That is tough for Triple G. Ooh, that is tough. In my opinion, I think Triple G should try the 168. To just try to see, just fight like any of those guys that Canelo has fought. I think that's the best way you could try to get Canelo's attention. I don't think going down in weight is very possible for Triple G. There's not a lot of big names where he's at. But there are some possible fights. I think for me, I would rather see him in a 168. division, but again, we'll see. He's 38 years old. Other than that, yeah, like for me, I don't have anyone on top of my head. Did you have anyone on top of your head, Wes?
Well, why not Jamal Charlo,
The Charlo brothers.
or at least one of them?
Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, I do think it would be a great fight with these with either one of them, but I don't think that they're ready per se. I do think that Triple G is still, the king of that division and the 160s. But I think it'll be a good option for Triple G. I just think that there's a little bit bigger names in 168 and a weight class lower. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you wait until the Charlos get bigger, but by then he might be a little too old for that.
Understandable. There's also Mungia
Right.
too,
Mm-hmm.
who I think could give Triple G a fight.
Or
Should
a drug.
should he not
Yeah.
should he not land Canelo or a Jamal Charlo?
Absolutely. Or a second fight with Derevyanchenko.
For sure, I could see that working.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, for what it's worth, let's enjoy the big win that Triple G had over Camille Zarameta, because Camille Zarameta is no joke.
Is no joke. He was undefeated.
He was undefeated. He was the mandatory challenger, and god damn it, he got up 4 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching
One from a
the
jab
fight.
too.
Yeah, one from a jab too. And I was watching the fight, Joy, and one of the ringside announcers was Chris Algieri. Chris
Right.
Algieri, I'm sure, is a familiar name to you,
Absolutely.
given that you and I are both big Manny Pacquiao fans.
Absolutely.
Manny Pacquiao knocked him down, I believe it was 5
Six-
times?
6 times.
6 times. 6 times. And he got up every single time.
Right.
So to see multiple knockdowns at the expense of a superstar,
Right.
you would have thought that maybe after the second or the third that it was going to be over.
Yeah.
But hey, Camille Zarameta
kept
had
going.
heart.
Hey.
He had
he's
heart.
A champion.
He was a champion, and he had no intention to lose.
Absolutely.
Just so happened that it wasn't his night, and the guy in front of him is a damn legend.
And I'm glad you brought up Chris Algieri because they actually asked him during the fight, like, Chris has been on that position where he's been knocked down a couple times. What kept him going? And he said it's that zero. You don't want that zero to go away, and so it kept him going back up. And so I'm really glad Sarameda showed what he's about, and hopefully he gets more recognition through this fight.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the exposure, I think, will do him good in the future, right? Because he's still relatively young. He is the pride and joy of Poland. So in the future, he will be able to bring something good home to where everyone can get back behind him and idolize him and see him as a hero. I mean, he was already a hero for fighting Triple G in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
But man, shouts to him for taking the fight. Shouts to Sarameda for taking the onslaught and being gracious in defeat as well.
Right.
And I could see a bright future for him. I think he could be one to watch at 160
Absolutely.
after Triple G.
I agree.
But
I agree.
that being said, I think that's the bell on round 2. You ready to go into round 3, Joy?
Yes, sir.
Go, Anthony Joshua. Go, Anthony Joshua.
Is that
yes,
Go ahead.
7 Nation Army. The British people love doing that for their guys. Soccer games, boxing matches, you name it. They love it. And it was stuck in my head that weekend, too. And yes, we are talking about my favorite heavyweight in the whole wide world right now, Anthony A.J. Joshua. He put his 4 belts on the line against strong challenger Kubrat Pulev from Bulgaria at the SSE Arena in Wembley over London a couple weeks ago. So not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And it was out to be a very, very good fight.
Right.
Pulev is no slouch, but we all know who Anthony Joshua is.
Absolutely.
Joy, you thought that he was going to beat him. By he, I mean Anthony Joshua was going to beat Kubrat Pulev in a unanimous decision, correct? I thought AJ was going to dispatch him in 10.
Right.
AJ dispatched him in 9.
Right.
Barrage of punches, 2 different styles being played out throughout the fight. And to the point where Kubrat Pulev turned his back on AJ.
Which
but at the same time was screaming as he was getting beat to tell AJ, I'm not hurt.
Which could have been the end of the fight when he
Absolutely.
when he turned around. So,
but yeah, I mean, that set the tone pretty much the rest of the night. Despite Pulev, like I said, screaming and challenging AJ to try and do some more damage, AJ obviously did oblige. It ended up knocking him on his back in the 9th round, and that ended up being the final nail in the coffin as Pulev could not beat the 10 count in round 9. So, Joy, what are your reactions to AJ's KO victory over Pulev?
yeah, I mean, like I said, this on the last podcast, I think Joshua, he has a pretty good jab, and he utilized his jab pretty well against Pulev, and that pretty much set up his power shots, his big right hand, and obviously, like, as big as a boxer as Anthony Joshua is, like, he's gonna pack a lot of power in these punches. And so I don't know, I thought Pulev was gonna be a little bit more measured. He was gonna be a little bit more calculated. It seems as though he kind of went into this approach of, like, let's just I can overpower Anthony Joshua. Obviously, it didn't work. You got to have a little bit quicker hands to catch Anthony Joshua. And so, I don't know. I think it was a great fight, right? We got to see the greatness of Anthony Joshua. Now, there's no doubts that he is, one of the best heavyweights of all time. And, hopefully this sets up that incredible fight that we've been looking forward to.
And that's pretty much what I was going to ask you next, Joy. What do you think is next for AJ?
I mean, technically, yes, he has to fight Usyk, right? It's a mandatory fight next. I don't know if it's for the IBF or the IBO, is whether that's the mandatory fight. But I mean, I want to see him versus Tyson Fury, right? For me, in my opinion, I think Tyson is a better boxer, but I do know that Joshua packs a bigger punch than Tyson. And so, obviously we get this kind of classic bout of power versus speed, pretty much style, versus brute force. But Joshua is a little bit more of a boxer now. He has learned to cut off the ring. He has learned to use his footwork. He is used to be pretty much using his jab, and he is a pretty good finisher as well. Whenever he senses his opponent is in trouble, he's very meticulous. He's very careful, and he doesn't waste any of his punches when he does sense someone that sense that his opponent is in danger.
Absolutely. I mean, if you notice, both guys, Tyson Fury and AJ, have their little isms when they sense that there are guys in trouble. So AJ likes to do the wide eyes, right, and opening his mouth and shaking his head. Fury kind of does the same thing, but he also does the tongue lick,
right? Absolutely.
which can be a little off-putting, but it is what it is. That's their signal of "I got you."
Yep.
You better find a way to get out of here before I do it for you.
Absolutely.
Right? But yes, I want to see AJ versus Tyson Fury, and yes, AJ has evolved into being a more well-rounded boxer,
absolutely,
which could give someone like Tyson Fury trouble. Especially when AJ is more athletic than him. and he's learning from, I believe his name is Angel Fernandez,
Yes.
as well as Floyd.
Yes.
So it can be a really good style matchup if they ever collide.
Right.
Now that's when they get into the politics. Frank Warren versus Eddie Hearn, MTK Queensberry versus Matchroom,
Hmm.
and the Zone,
All right.
right? So it becomes this big political game. I hope we get it in 2021. If
Absolutely.
not, I'm totally fine with AJ fighting Alexander Usyk.
Absolutely.
I
And
mean,
I don't know if this is true, but Usyk said, he's willing to step out of the fight, for a pretty large sum of money. But it's a good point, right? Like Usyk is pretty much technically the next challenger for Joshua's belt. After that, then Joshua can challenge or be free to be challenged by anyone. And so, but like you brought up a good point, right? Like it's not that easy, because there are politics that play into side, right? These guys are not in the same promotion. It's gonna be a little bit harder to put them in the same ring, but when they do, man, like when you set aside the politics and you actually not just set aside, but actually agree, two sides agree on the politics, it it then becomes set, right?
absolutely. And I forgot to mention one other party, and that is, or two other parties really, and that's Top Rank and Bob Arum on Tyson Fury's side,
Hmm.
right? And if you ask me, this could also be a four-man race. And by four men, I mean AJ, Alexander Usyk,
Right.
Tyson Fury, and Deontay Wilder. And Deontay
Absolutely.
Wilder is willing to put a lawsuit against Tyson Fury for their rematch clause. So that just throws a big wrench into everything.
I'm pretty sure. And if I think, well, what would you like, Wes? If Joshua does fight Usyk, would you like to see Tyson Fury just, oh, okay, fine, I'll just fight Deontay one more time, and then after I get through him, we'll get to, if he does get through him.
Well, if Fury would rather have a harder path to Anthony Joshua,
Hmm.
why not?
Absolutely, I
Right?
agree. It's a much harder path.
Because there is going to be a ring rust if he just sits there and
Hmm.
waits for AJ
Right.
and Alexander Usyk. He could take a tune up against a other heavyweight. That other heavyweight, I don't know who that would be, but it would be at the same time an easier path for Fury if he did it like that. But then if he wants a harder path to show that he's still battle tested, given that he's among the older ones in the group with Deontay Wilder,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That if I fight Deontay Wilder one more time and I dominate him, I can show that I'm still up there in my game. And as long as AJ takes care of business with Usyk, then we're both on a crash course. We're both in form to do something great. Whether that fight takes place in the desert, here in America, who knows?
Right.
In
Absolutely.
England, for all we know.
Well, who would be that other fighter for you, Wes, for Tyson Fury to fight? I have some in mind, but I don't even think they're possible as well.
Andy Ruiz.
Absolutely, that was my first choice, Andrew Ruiz. Um, and yeah, I mean, other than that, like another fight with Deontay.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a lot of gatekeeping, mandatory challenging, and
Right.
lawsuits. That's what it looks like at the heavyweight division right now.
It's kind of weird, right? Like, two of UK's biggest boxers pretty much living in the same country. I'm pretty sure Tyson lives in LA, but it's whatever. But it's weird that they're not. hosting this, or they're not planning on hosting this in Wembley, right? It's they're leaning more towards Abu Dhabi. Am I correct?
Uh, Tyson resides in Vegas
Ah, okay.
or in Henderson, which is like a suburb of Vegas,
Mm,
but it is Diriyah, Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Okay. And so yeah, isn't that strange? You know, two of UK's biggest boxers not fighting in Wembley Stadium, which I mean I love Wembley, so
Yeah, I mean, back in the 70s, they had two American fighters fight in the middle of Africa
in the Philippines.
and in the Philippines.
Yeah,
So,
I guess. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean this is I mean of course, right? Like the biggest fight in boxing history could be, and obviously it's going to be the biggest fight for heavyweights. Of course, it has to be Saudi Arabia, right? Where the money flows, where the money talks. Uh, and so, yeah, I think it's interesting, right? These two guys seem to be fighting every other heavyweight except each other, and at some point they're gonna come to a dead end where they can't fight anyone else anymore. And I think you might as well just fight now, right when the hype is at its biggest, because you never know. We've witnessed that with the draw against Deontay Wilder with Tyson Fury, and then pretty much the fight with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, the second fight, even became bigger. And pretty much AJ when he fought Anthony Ruiz, yeah, Ruiz, pretty much like no one expected the first fight with Ruiz to go the way that it did, and then the second fight was bigger for Anthony Joshua. And so for me, like, this is the perfect time, right? Like your popularity for both fighters is at an all-time high. I'm pretty sure the promoters also know that there's not a lot left for them to prove for anyone else, for them to fight anyone else. There is still kind of the undefeated, right, for Tyson Fury. But again, we will see. We will see. You got your man, I got mine.
absolutely. And, in a way, it kind of talks to me, this situation, it talks to me of a similar situation in the welterweight division from 2010 to 2015.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
But it just so happened that those two guys met. One guy's going off into the sunset fighting guys from YouTube. The other guy's still a major world champion. And then with this case, it could come to that someday.
It could. It could. I mean, hopefully, it doesn't drag all the way up to 5 years or 6 years. You know, because these two are, I think, currently at their prime. This is the best that they've been in their careers. Maybe Anthony Joshua will get better. He still has that room. I mean, in his age. I mean, you never know. Tyson Fury still has that chance to get better, but I think for me, Tyson Fury is the best boxer in the heavyweight division, and yeah, perhaps Anthony Joshua is the most athletic. He's also probably the most well-rounded, and so yeah, this is what intrigues me so much, right? This is what boxing is. It's all about styles versus styles.
Absolutely, and not to mention, AJ has technically the better resume,
Right.
given that he's fought, Klitschko's, White's, Chisora's, Parker's, Povetkin's,
Mm.
and now the Ruiz and the Pulevs of the world.
Right.
So it goes to show that these two men should be on a crash course to fight each other. Now, will we get it? I don't know. I hope so.
I hope so too.
But for what
2021.
2021, yes. But for what it's worth, they're both great in their respective careers. They're going to be Hall of Famers no matter what.
Absolutely, I totally
And
agree.
we should be happy to have them both. Even though I'm more of a Anthony Joshua fan than a Gypsy King fan.
Uh, but yeah, yeah, I totally agree. We're at this kind of golden age for heavyweights, which is weird. A couple years ago, it seems as though it was the welterweights. It seems as though it was following Manny Pacquiao, pretty much, right? The featherweights were all the talk, and then Pacquiao moved to lightweight, and then Marquez moved to lightweight. Morales moved to lightweight. At that time, Barrero was a little bit too old, and then pretty much the welterweights. He went to the welterweights, but the welterweights were already big at that time. Pretty much the biggest draw or attraction was Ricky Hatton at that time, and pretty much fighting Ricky Hatton with Manny Pacquiao. I mean, obviously, you're gonna get insane numbers, especially for attendance and viewing for pay per view. Um, and yeah, even before that, as Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, they ruled that division of welterweights. But I never actually saw, or never would have predicted that the biggest, um, pretty much division would be the heavyweights, because I remember back then watching with during the time of Pacquiao, the Klitschko's pretty much ruled the heavyweight division. There wasn't really any challenger to their reign, and so yeah, it surprised me that now the heavyweights are where they are. Perhaps we can even credit Deontay Wilder for bringing up the heavyweights, because he does have, I forgot what it was, Wes. It's like a 98% knockout rate, which is insane. And then this huge superstar, right? I mean, he's got the face, he's got the figure, he's 6'6", Anthony Joshua, and then you get the most like loud heavyweight out there in Tyson Fury, and then you have this kid from LA that doesn't really fit the profile, doesn't really seem like a world champion, in Andy Ruiz. So I mean, this is why, like, just the characters of these heavyweights, of these heavyweight fighters, of course they're gonna be the main attraction for the after the welterweights were the main attraction. But I still think next to Fury and Joshua, I think right under that is Crawford and Spence. So still the welterweight is there. It's still one of the main attraction. But I think I agree with you, Wes. This is the fight that we need to watch.
Before we close out the round, I do want to remind you: don't forget about Floyd,
Hmm.
especially in that division, the welterweight division. Don't
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, in lightweight
Floyd.
division. Don't forget about Floyd.
Floyd.
And then when it comes to what to watch outside of the heavyweight division, don't forget about 160 and 168,
Right.
who we just discussed earlier.
Hmm.
Especially when the pound for pound king is residing in both of those
In
divisions.
both. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot to watch, especially in the heavyweight division as well. Of course, here in our side of the world, we're waiting for our big name, multi-champion, unified champion from our country, right? It was supposed to be Deontay Wilder, but of course, the two top guys are from England. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But we still love Deontay, but we also love Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua just the same. So, you know what? Great discussion in round 3, Joy, and that is it for tonight. We made the distance, Joy. 3 rounds of hard discussion.
Unlike Callum.
Oh boy.
No. I'm sorry, Callum. I'm sorry.
Oh boy.
I like you and your brother. Please don't beat me up.
Oh boy. But hey, this was a great discussion, man.
Right.
3 rounds, 3 big names, all showed up to their respective fights, took care of business, a lot for them to take care of moving forward. The big winner, I think, after these 3 rounds is us, Joy, the fans.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
fans, the podcasters, the armchair analysts, you name it, whatever you want to call us. Or if you're Tyson Fury, the big dossers,
Pencil pushers, I like to call us.
pencil pushers, or the blokes,
The
as those
folks.
guys over there in the UK like to call us, the blokes, or the dudes, whatever you want to call
The
us. It's
dudes.
all good. It's all good. We're the big winners here of those 3 guys taking care of business, and we'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great show, Wes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joy. Thank you for taking the rounds with me, being the best sparring partner one can ask for, or the best dad's partner, as Tyson Fury would say. And that is it for this week's edition of the No Decision Podcast. We will get back to you next week with more boxing news. For Joy Villapando, I am Wes Ibarra. Have a happy holidays and have a great night.